Hello, indie authors. Today I am going to be sharing with you how to update your categories on Amazon and why you want to do that when you publish your books. And we're going to do this actually with Indie Author Business Success, which just came out. If we go into here and we click on Edit eBook Details, I'm going to show you the two categories that I picked out for the book. At the time when you create a book, you have to pick out categories. And so in this case, I picked out nonfiction, business, economics, and time management and general. And that's great. But if we go over here to the actual listing of the book on Kindle, we don't see the categories there at all. And if we go here, we also don't see them on this particular, on the print version of the book. That's problematic for us because it means that we're not necessarily getting a lot of eyeballs on our book. And that's what we want. We want to get eyeballs on our book. So how do we do that? Well, of course, we talked about keywords in the last video, but we also want to make sure our book is going into the proper categories. And in this case, what we need to do is we need to update those categories. You do see a category up here, books, business, and money and skills. So, I mean, you kind of see that right here. And if I click on this, I'm just curious to see what happens. That just takes us to this. But in this case, what we're going to do is I'm just going to go back to that. What we're going to do is we're going to actually do a little bit of research here and get our book onto the proper category. Now to do that, we also need to keep something else in mind, and it's how do we do that? So we're going to go here to Amazon Author Central. Amazon Author Central is where you want to go to update your categories, because while we could update our categories here, we can only do 2 browse categories. But in Amazon, you can actually do more than 2 categories. You can do up to 10. And not only that, but you can actually do it for international markets as well, though it works a little bit differently there, and we're going to cover that here in a moment as well. So in order to do that, let's look at the process. We go here to Help, and then we go from there to Contact Us. It's going to take us to this contact page, and what we're going to do is we're going to select My Books. We're going to select Update Information about a book. We're going to select Browse Categories, and then we're going to say I want to update my book's browse categories. Now, if you have a US phone number, you have 2 options. You can do it by email or by phone. I prefer to do it by email, and the reason why is because I prefer to give them written instructions. It just makes life easier. Now, before we get into this, I want to show you a couple of other things that we use. Over here, I have a Word document. This Word document is my category document, and what I do is I have it set up, in this case you're seeing international audiences. I recommend keeping a document like this, especially if you have multiple books, because this is going to make it easier for you to update your categories, especially if those books are in the same genre or type. Like in this case, I can just take this as a form letter, copy and paste it, and swap it out for any of my esoteric nonfiction. And as you'll see down here, I've just set up Indie Authors Categories US because that's what I'm going to use in the case of the Indie Author thing. I'm going to basically create a form letter here as well. So we'll just put that over there for the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this, and I'm just going to make some changes when I go in there. So I'm just going to copy this, because obviously I don't want it going into these categories for my nonfiction book. It's not going to go very far if I do that for this particular book. So what I'm going to do is just pull this out here, and I am going to put this here a little bit further. So, hello, and then I would like to update the browse categories. In this case, I'm going to specify for the US market of this book, of the following book. I'm going to change the title to Indie Author Business Success. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and copy the ASIN and put that over in here. I always include the ISBN and ASIN because I don't assume that they automatically are going to know that information, and I want to make this process as painless for them as possible. It just makes life easier. And then we have, for the Kindle version, please update to the following. Well, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this because that's not applicable here. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. I'll just go ahead and put my name down here. Now this is great, but you're going to say, okay, Taylor, but how do we actually do this? Well, right now we're going to open up Kindle Rocket, our Publisher Rocket, which again is a wonderful tool that can help you with these kinds of things. And we're gonna go about this a couple different ways. We have the category search, but we also have competition analyzer, which can actually in some ways be a bit more useful for this process. Again, I want to mention I do have a link for Publisher Rocket and in the description for this video, and it is an affiliate link, which means if you choose to buy or if you choose to click on that link and then you end up buying Publisher Rocket, it means I get a little bit of money, which I appreciate if that's something you want to do. But let's go into here. This is category search here that we're going to do. And assuming it's going to let us, or is it just, it's taking its time. Come on, Publisher Rocket. Okay, it is freaking out. So I'm going to open it up again because sometimes that's what we need to do. Push this back up here. Okay, so now we're going to go in here to category search. There we go. Now we're cooking. And it's finishing loading up here. So in here, it's going to say enter at least 3 letters to get started. So I'm going to type in WRI. And as we see here, this brings up stuff in relationship to writing. So now when I look here, I actually see some different possibilities here that I could use. Like I could use books, business and money, skills, and business writing as a category. And if I click on check it out, over here on the right, it's going to end up taking me to Amazon, and it's going to show me the category page here. This shows you the different books that are showing up in this category, the top 15 in this case, and probably if we were to wait for it to load, it would show more. Now, this is always handy because then you see the particular tree here, and you'll need that when you are updating your categories. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go back in here to Publisher Rocket. Let's scroll down a little bit and take a look and see what else we've got. So we have here, we have books, reference, writing, research, and publishing guide, publishing and books. Well, that sounds like a really applicable one for my particular thing. So if we go down here, this actually shows us some other applicable categories that can be useful. And we definitely want to be using these categories because they're going to help us get our book out to the people who are looking for this book. Again, you're going to see, and as we scroll down here, you're going to see some further ones. This is why I love Publisher Rocket, because it just makes it a lot easier to find these categories. You know, otherwise you're having to go through and really dig deep. I mean, and that can still be useful, don't get me wrong, but it's sometimes really nice if you want to see where things are. Now, like, you know, we have books, reference, writing and research, writing skills. So, you know, as you can see, we're going to see that we have some different types of categories here that are applicable. And we can go here again each time to go through and check them out. Now, one thing that we're going to do here is we are going to go back in here and we're going to go to keyword search. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this for ebook in this case, and I am going to go ahead and put self-publishing. Now we saw this last time where we did this with in the previous video. We saw where we had this we analyzed these. So you might say, well, why are we doing this right now, Taylor? Well, if we go here and we click on competition, it takes us to Competition Analyzer. And what's nice about this is that we can go in here and actually see some different books that are showing up here that might be applicable to what we're looking for. In this case, none of these are. So I'm going to close out of here. I like to do this via keyword search because it makes it easier to then just pull that up. But we could also just type it into here and do the same thing. So here we have one, helping writers become authors, writing. This is probably applicable here. This shows us the categories that this book is in right now. And as you can see, there's about 10 of these categories that this person's in. And in this case, the reason I chose this is because when you come up with your categories, you also want to come up with Kindle stores, Kindle ebooks, so that you're making sure that you're getting them into the relevant categories. You do want to make sure your categories are appropriate. In this case, I don't know that graphic design for this one would be applicable. It might be, but it might not be. Let's go back here. And so we see some other stuff. I'm going to do another search. This time I'm going to do indie author. So what's nice about this is if we go here, we actually get to see the categories that other authors have chosen. Oh, and look at that. We see mine that just came out. So I'm even in there right now, which is pretty nice. And here's something that stands out to me. Some of these authors that have these books are not using the categories as well as they could. Robert Ryan, of course, is. I mean, look at this. He's got them in a bunch of these. So he's, and you see in his case, he's got stuff like advertising, online advertising, advertising writing skills. And the reason why is because part of what he's dealing with is he's talking about writing blurbs and things like that. So it makes a lot of sense. We want to, again, make sure that we're putting our book into the appropriate categories in order to help people find our books. And this is a good example here where we have Kindle Store, Kindle eBooks, reference writing and research and publishing guide, genre fiction, because he's helping people with genre fiction. So, you know, this is why it's good to see what other people are actually drawing upon, because it gives you an idea as to how to find the relevant categories for your books. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to actually go ahead and get my category set up. And then I'm going to, in the form letter, and then I'm going to show you that, and then I'm going to show you how to do this with an international market, because this is important too. So pause it. Okay, so I'm back here. I'm coming back on because I want to show you, so far I've got these here for the print version. I haven't filled it all out yet, but I want to show you what my thought process is here a little bit. So for the first one, I have books going to business, money, skills, and business writing. Because again, some people who are doing business writing might find this relevant. But after that, I moved to books, reference, writing, research, and publishing guide, publishing books, authorship, and book industry. Now, one thing I always recommend is that you actually take a look at the category. So in here, I go here to authorship and I take a look. If I go here to bibliographies and indexes, I'm probably not going to pick this one because I don't think that it's really relevant to the particular books that it's relevant in this case to what I'm looking for. Now I go down here to I can go down, there's a little subcategory here, so let's go down to business and just take a look and see. But yeah, again, I don't think that this book is necessarily going to be as, this actually could be a good one here because it would be a reference. So what I might do for this one is I might change it to that and then have them drill down a little bit further. So I could take it like this, and I'll copy this and go here, and then I'm going to go back here and I'm going to go ahead and include bibliographies and indexes. And you want to copy this tree exactly when you're doing this kind of work. It has to be done that way. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose business. So you see how I have everything written out here. got the little carrots and all that. That's what you need to do. It basically makes it a lot easier for them to, well, basically, if you don't do it exactly right, they're not going to be able to put it into the category. That's really the reality of it. I'm going to go back up to here to writing research and publishing guides, and because that was just showing us publishing and books, but let's go down to writing. And this is where I like sometimes going on Amazon itself, because then it shows me other things. So we can go down to writing skills in this case, and this is going to show me books that are related to writing. So again, I'm going to choose this because, as you can see, it's relevant to my particular to what I want to do. All right, I'm going to pause this again, and then we'll come back in a little bit. Okay, folks, I'm back, and as you can see at this point, I have gone ahead and I have 10 categories for this book. Now, before we go ahead and click that send email button, we're going to copy, and we are going to paste that sucker into here. And the reason why we're going to do that is because if you know that you're going to write more books with these categories, you can save yourself a lot of time by already having a form letter put together that you can then just send out when you need to. Now, you still may want to occasionally update your categories. Like, you shouldn't automatically just be like, well, these categories are always going to work. You may every so often check and see. But when you have tons of books, this cuts down on the amount of work that you're doing significantly, because you already know what categories those books should be going into. So I've put that in there so that the next time that I write another book on, which I will, on the topic of indie author business success, this is going to allow me, once that book goes live, to get those category emails sent out. Now, the other thing I want you to note is I'm only sending this for the US market. I'm going to send separate form emails for each market. And the reason why I do them separately like that is I don't want to overwhelm the person who gets, or the people who get these emails. So I send out an email per market. That makes it a lot easier for us to go ahead and make sure these books are going out, or these are going out. So I'm going to go ahead and click send email. And that email will have been sent out. I'll get an email sometime by tomorrow, and they'll say they've updated it, and then they'll typically tell you it takes up to 72 hours. And usually that's the case. I mean, it takes anywhere between 24 to 72 hours for it to update. But what you'll see is once that's happened, you'll start seeing more activity, because it'll be easier for people to find your books, and that's one of the reasons we want to do this. Now, I did talk about doing this for the UK market, so we're going to go here, we're going to go back here to contact us, or rather for an international market, and we're going to go here to update information about a book, and we're going to go here to browse categories, and we're going to go ahead and click on email. And what we're going to do is we are just going to paste that in here. But you might say, okay, great, that's easy. I don't have to do any further research. Not so fast. Different markets have different categories. So we're going to clear this out because we don't know if these are the same categories that are in an international market. Now, Publisher Rocket can help us a little bit here. We're going to pull this back up. If you click on here on the little flag icon, you can actually change it to UK and Germany. You can't change it to all of the other markets as of yet. So we're going to change this to UK for now, because that's the market we're in. And we are going to go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and type in indie author. And let's see what our friend Robert has, because I'm sure one of his books will end up popping up here. And what we want to do is we want to see, and there's my book again. See here's the current ones. That one wasn't necessarily what was there before, and we don't necessarily want that. Now, if I go down here, we have some other ones. Let's go to the indie author mindset. You know, I don't know why he put this one in social sciences. It doesn't really make sense to me. These other ones do make sense, but you know, again, he's not using the full capacity. And let's see here. Here we go. Here's our friend Robert Ryan. Again, let's take a look and see. In this case, he doesn't have these updated in this category. So this is a good example of where an author may not be fully using the capacity of Amazon. And you could be selling great in the UK or in the US, but not selling as well in the UK because you don't have your books in all the categories. Now, here's the truth of it, is you can already probably tell this work is a little time intensive. You know, you have to be willing to set aside a little bit of time, and if you have a lot of books, it can be a little overwhelming. That's one of the reasons why I recommend keeping the document that I showed you. It's also one of the reasons why, you know, I only do one book a day right now until I have all my books caught up. And then, you know, in the future it'll be a lot easier. So I just started doing this literally yesterday for the international markets. And if you noticed in my document worksheet, I didn't have a UK market in there for the esoteric nonfiction. That was because I was just like, oh, I'm just trying this out. And then I was like, partway through, I'm like, oh yeah, it'd be a good idea if I did that. You know, you want to be as proactive as possible when you're building systems for your business. And this is a good example of a proactive business system in place. So in this case, we see that this really doesn't have a lot of things. It's still pretty good. But you know, if we go here, we see a few more, so he has a few more showing up there. But for all intents and purposes, what we want is we want to use as many of those as many categories as possible. So now, let's go over here. We're going to close out of here and out of here. And we're going to go into our bookshelf, and this time we're going to go ahead and click on UK. And let's take a look and see what my book shows up in UK. And again, the reason we do this is because what's in our UK book is not going to necessarily be the same as what we see. Like in this case, it's going to business, finance, law, management skills, and we're not seeing the categories in the descriptions that we would like to see, which is too bad because that's what we want. So if I click on here, though, this is going to take me to these categories. Now, what I really want is, I don't necessarily want that going to that particular category. I might want it to go to books, business, finance, and law, but I'm probably going to want it to go a little bit differently. I could go down to reference and education, for example, here. And I might choose something along these lines, but this doesn't really look accurate either. And so if we go here to, we're going to go maybe to sales and marketing. And here now we do see some other ones. We could do potentially, we could do like advertising, for example, and see what they have. This might be a possibility because we're trying to find some of this stuff. But you can see, as you can see here, this is why it's really important to see like what different markets have going. And we're gonna go ahead and do this with another market in this case. Let's go down to France. Now France is not in Publisher Rocket, and you might be like, at this point you might be like, okay Taylor, I don't speak the French language. How am I going to possibly figure this out? Well, here's what we're going to do. We are going to go to Boutique Kindle, eBook Kindle, and we're going to go up here to this category here. This is showing us some of these. We could go into business and investing, which might give us some possibilities here, like small business and entrepreneurship, for example. And then home-based, which is one I would use. We're going to go back up a couple. Let's go here and let's go down to reference, because again, that's a good one. And so we might go down into here into like writing or something like that. So as you can see, like in this case, Publisher Rocket doesn't even show us the French market yet, as of yet. I'm sure they will, and again, I totally recommend investing in Publisher Rocket. As you can see, I do use it regularly, and it does help out a lot. And it does, even with this, it helps cut down on the work, because even though I know what to look for as a result of using Publisher Rocket. So just keep that in mind. In this case, what we're going to do in the UK market is we're going to do the same thing. We'll create a form, and then we're going to go ahead and basically copy and paste that. We're going to do it for each of the markets that we are going to want this to be in. Now, if you look on here, you actually have a number of markets. What I've done typically is I've done US, UK, Germany, France, Canada, and Australia. I haven't done some of these other ones. I may down the line. It just depends on whether or not I think there's enough of a market there. The reason why I've done these is because I've noticed that when I look at my sales, I notice that, for example, most of my sales come from the US. Makes sense. Fair number come from the UK. Germany, somewhat. Canada and Australia are definitely, because they're English-speaking countries, are probably going to be a bit better. I've gone with France because it's pretty robust. But if I go like to Italy, for example, and I noticed this the other day when I went into the thing. Also, you can always use this translate thing. So if you're like, well, you know, what does it say in English? You can use that. But again, I think you can kind of start to figure some of this out as you go through. But like over here, I might go to like ebook indie instead and use that, or I might not. So I mean, this is where I don't, as of yet, feel as comfortable going in and making changes, because I don't know as much. I would probably go ahead and use like the translation. And so if I reload this, let's see what it does here. Is it going to give me that thing? No, it doesn't. So, there we go. We're going to translate it to English. Well, now this is kind of, no, is it? Yeah, translate, come on. Okay, it is. But see, even so, like with this, you're still not getting like a lot. So, I mean, it's not the best translator in the world. And in this case, I mean, you're not going to necessarily, like I could go to ebooks in a foreign language, but again, that's not going to necessarily give us what we're looking for. So you know, you kind of have to decide at a certain point, like what your, how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go. For right now, for me, going deep down the rabbit hole is doing Germany, UK, France, and the other countries. But maybe as Publisher Rocket expands its market thing, that may end up changing that a little bit, and I may end up using that more. We'll see what happens. But for the moment, I just wanted to share this with you to give you an idea of how you can get more categories in for your books. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. But remember that you want to set something up like this, and what I showed you up here for like the French market and the others, because this is going to help you get your books to more categories. And if your books are in more categories, it means it makes it more likely that you're going to get sales, and more sales means that you become a successful indie author that much quicker. All right, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful